I am Dr. Stacey Tackett. I am a marine and aquatic microbial ecologist and biogeochemist here at Deakin University, and I work in the blue carbon lab. This project is tea composition, H2O, and it's a global project where we're using tea bags to learn about how wetlands sequester carbon. So we all know like rainforests, they take in CO2 and that's really good for the environment because it takes out greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. But for coastal and other wetlands, they do that as well, but they also put carbon in their sediments and their soils, and that can stay there a lot longer, so for hundreds of thousands of years. So it's a really powerful way to take out carbon from the atmosphere naturally and permanently put it in the ground. Yeah. So our lab leader, Pete McCready, he did a trip over to the US, visiting a bunch of different labs, and he came across this teabag project that's mostly focused on terrestrial ecosystems. So he was like, oh, well, there's a lot missing as far as what we know about wetlands, so let's do a similar project of putting tea bags out in wetlands in aquatic environments, so seagrass, salt marsh, inlet wetlands, streams, lakes, and figure out why some wetlands sequester carbon better than others using simple tea bags. What we really liked about this is that, well, a lot of times in science, it's quite expensive to do projects. So one of them is that these tea bags are very cheap. You can get them anywhere. And also the global aspect of this project. So a lot of times, you're focused on one little area regionally, but since this is a global project, you can start to answer very large-scale questions about the carbon cycle and carbon sequestration and greenhouse gas release. A lot of it is communicating with your participants since they are in different countries, different time zones. You get questions and emails all hours and everything, so it's really important to sit down and make sure you answer your questions. Also, a lot of coordinating data as well, because you're getting data in, we'll be getting in for the next 3 years and making sure you keep up with that. Yeah, making sure things run smoothly. Yeah, great organizational skills you need. So yes, right now it's mainly researchers, some citizen scientists as well. But beyond this tea composition H2O project, we can use it to reach out to school-age children to teach them about the value of wetlands, but also your local, more citizen scientists, so your catchment management authorities. They can really use this to do outreach for their local citizen scientists as well. It hasn't been too tough, really. It's been quite a joy, but I think one of the big things was coordinating the shipment of this tea to more than 300 sites over the globe. That took a little bit of organization, and that was a bit tough, but the tea got everywhere, so it was a good success. It's so many people are putting their time and effort into this project. It's really important to me that they get something out of this as well for them, but also this project has great potential for outreach as well. So we get this question all the time, what, you're really doing science with tea bags? Can I drink it? I'm like, no, this tea is for science. So that, yeah, outreach to businesses, industry, citizen scientists, school children, high school teenagers. It's really powerful, this project, I think. We've had a really good response so far. So last February, it was World Wetlands Day, and we got a chance to put an article in The Guardian and we got such a good response out of that. We were getting emails and like, oh, like this sounds amazing, and a lot of people signed up to the project. So that was a great way that science communication and the novelty of this project really reached all corners of the world. There are a few things. So I guess for academia and science, we're going to get some really powerful data and to put into some really high impact papers. But that the information we get from this is why is some wetlands sequestering carbon better than others or emitting more than others, and using that data to possibly inform national or international policy on wetlands and carbon emissions as well. So I think the information we'll be getting from here, like I said, why wetlands sequester carbon better than others, it would add value to wetlands. So wetlands are great for biodiversity, shoreline protection, and now we can finally answer questions of carbon sequestration, like why they do that better than others, but also hopefully adding, it will also add value as far as possibly carbon credits and stuff, so putting money back into potential for restore wetlands that have been degraded, so adding value that way as well. Yeah, it's really neat getting pictures from all over the world of people putting in their tea, so that was really cool. So what we're trying to do now is, I guess, build our web presence, so getting a map and showing everyone, where we are, people are what they're doing, get people involved that way who are not necessarily in the project, just so they kind of can follow the project. And yeah, so people are starting to get data in now. So in the next month or so, we'll be starting to collect the data and yeah. So this project, I think, will highlight that important thing of why wetlands are so important, both for the ecology and the environment, but also for wetlands do really well for filter out pollutants and just adding that value. I think highlighting this carbon sequestration impact kind of centers you like, oh, we do emit a lot. Even if we cut out, or reduce a lot of our emissions, there's still stuff out there in the atmosphere. So biosequestration adds to that by, taking out that CO2 in the atmosphere. So if we have, both reduction of CO2 as well as sequestration, that would be a really powerful thing to help the changing climate. So this tea that we use, it's in the fancy pyramid type tea bag rather than your cloth-based ones, and that's important because there is a bit of nylon or plastic woven in with the cloth, and that will help keep the bag together because we're putting these in really wet, muddy environments. So we don't want the bag to degrade, we want the tea inside to degrade or decompose. So having a strong outer bag is going to be really helpful for this project. So there was a paper a few years ago that used those teas, and they found that the green tea is made of components that are really easy to degrade, while red tea was really hard to degrade. So it kind of gives a nice contrast to decomposition. So that's why I put both teas out there to kind of see how the wetlands do their thing with two different types of tea. So we expect the green to decompose more quickly, and then the red to take a bit longer. That means that this is where my microbial ecology background comes in. So in your sediments, it's really rich in bacteria and microbes. So when sediment gets in, they see the tea as like, oh, this is great food. So they start eating it and degrading it, and that's what's happening during the decomposition process, is the microbes are breaking down the tea. There's two ways carbon can get into the soil. So for living plants, You do have roots, and the roots do release carbon naturally. That's part of what they do, and those are called exudates. So that's a continual process. They're pretty easy to break down, so they don't last very long. But once, I guess, a tree dies or just parts of it die and the litter goes into the ground, that does enter the whole decomposition process. They're really tough stuff, so like tree trunks, stuff with what we call cellulose and lignin, those take a bit longer to break down. That's what we expect to contribute more to the carbon sequestration. We do have a decomposition handle. It's hashtag #tcompositionh2o. And we post stuff on that, as well as other people who are participating around the world. You post what they're doing.